Masamune is a fat shit excuse of a human being, but everything changes when his crush rejects him for looking like Jabba the Hutt. Thanks to this earth-shattering violation, Masamune hit the gym for 8 years and returned to his school as a megached seeking revenge on his old crush. On the first day of high school, he prepares himself by looking in the mirror and posing like a self-loving degenerate, while his sister, Chinatsu, tells him that he needs to stop beating his meat and get some hoes. His mother, Kinue, who suspiciously looks like she would turn on lolly-loving degenerates like you, asks the two siblings to breakfast. Masamune channels his inner Giga Chad and declines the high-calorie breakfast that his mother prepared for him. On his way to school, he starts monologuing like an idiot about how hot he is, and all the girls start drooling at him like he's the second coming of Michael Jackson. In front of a school, another hot idiot proposes his love to a girl nicknamed the Cruel Princess, Adagaki. Living up to her nickname, Adagaki starts spitting mad bars and violates the guy, calling him a limp-willy trash can, and declines his feelings for her. Seeing Adagaki's actions, Masamune feels intimidated and remembers his past when Adagaki calls him a fat piggy and tells him that she will never love him. In class, with his pretty privilege, he gets special treatment, getting free food from his friend, Kojiro, and even a pat on the back by the class rep, Futaba, after sleeping in class. Suddenly, Adagaki enters the classroom with her slave, Yoshino, and calls out another boy who proposed his love for her, and she tells him that he looks like a pudding who doesn't deserve her love. Seeing it unfold, Masamune then pulls a James Bond and spies on Adagaki to get more information about her, and he gets information that she likes to eat lunch alone. He then quietly follows Adagaki's lackey, Yoshino, to find out that Adagaki is actually a slimmer Nikocado avocado and likes to eat a lot. With this information, Masamune now has a weapon up his sleeve. He then starts becoming chummy with Adagaki and starts getting closer with her, but Adagaki always tells him to touch grass and stay away from her. Later after school, Adagaki treats Yoshino like shit and tells her to get her something to eat. Suddenly, the pudding boy that she rejected shows up and starts assaulting her, as he is jealous of Masamune. From out of nowhere, Masamune shows up using Tobarama's Flying Thunder God and saves Adagaki from Pudding Boy like a superhero, and Pudding Boy runs away. Masamune then rizzes her and starts monologuing again like an idiot about his past. 8 years ago, Masamune was a fat turd who gets bullied, but then Adagaki saves him and he falls in love with her. But Adagaki calls him a pig's foot and that she will never love him. He looks to get revenge by getting her to love him, and then dump her like the trash she is. Masamune then starts tweaking and laughing like a true degenerate after thinking about his genius plan. The next day, Masamune receives a love letter in his locker, but the letter calls him Pig's Foot, which means that his cover is blown. Masamune tries to find out who sent the letter, and starts suspecting everyone, even Futaba and Kojiro. He starts tweaking out of fear that people will find out that he was once a fat shitty excuse of a human being who gets no bitches. Not wanting that to happen, he starts his detective work. He remembers the Navy SEAL training that he has to go through to get in shape, and uses it as motivation. Suddenly, lunchtime starts and everyone rushes to get their food from the cafeteria, and among them is Yoshino, who is in the back of the line. She gets pushed back, and the plot gods strike again, as she falls and shows Masamune her mint-colored panties. Yoshino starts tearing up and recites her death wish, as she fails to buy some food on her list. She hands the list to Masamune to buy, and with his chiseled abs and hard work, he successfully gets the food. Yoshino's eyes start to glimmer as she sees her savior Masamune, who got her the food. Masamune tells Yoshino that he knows that the food is for Adagaki, and he asks to come with her to Adagaki. Yoshino tries to run away, but Masamune catches her and pulls her cheek. After some convincing, she lets Masamune come with her. They make it to Adagaki, and she starts insulting Yoshino and calling her names for being late to bring her food. Masamune watches them from the outside and comes in after Yoshino leaves. After going back and forth with Adagaki, Masamune makes a conclusion that Adagaki was not the one who sent him the letter. Suddenly, Yoshino comes in and slips, and the plot gods bless us again with the sight of her panties. Later, Yoshino shows her pure kindness as best girl to Masamune, but Adagaki tells her that Yoshino is her slave and only hers. Masamune then rizzes Adagaki and tells her that he wants to be her slave too, and leaves the room. After school is over, Masamune walks home while scheming his next steps to attack Adagaki's feelings. Out of nowhere, he steps into a booby trap set up by Yoshino and hangs him upside down. Yoshino calls him Pig's Foot and turns out to be the person behind the letter, and asks Masamune if he wants his revenge. Masamune then tries his hardest to remember his past, and finally remembers that Yoshino was a maid in Adagaki's mansion. He feels defeated and tells Yoshino that he will have his revenge on Adagaki. In a huge plot twist, Yoshino turns into Judas and tells Masamune that she will help him have his revenge. The next day, Masamune is reluctant in trusting Yoshino, thinking it's another trap and that she will show his browser history to the world and embarrass him. To get even closer with Adagaki, Masamune joins the Tree Hugger Committee that takes care of the school's environment, but Adagaki still avoids him like the plague. During his work at the committee, the class rep Futaba approaches him and apologizes for pushing him to join this committee. She then invites him to watch a movie together, just the two of them as a date. Hearing her confession, Masamune starts daydreaming about his future babies with Futaba and almost folds under her charms, but he pulls himself together for his mission and doesn't give her a proper answer. Here Masamune realizes that he's actually popular, and girls want him to be their baby daddy. He starts giggling like an idiot, knowing the reputation he has, but suddenly Adagaki pops up from behind to confront him about something. Masamune suspects that she starts getting jealous due to his popularity, and with his full chest claims that he would love to go out with Adagaki. Adagaki tells him thank you, and Masamune's confidence skyrockets, thinking that he has won her over. He then asks for her contact information, but she comes up with some bullshit excuse and tells him that she will give it next time, and he agrees. Later, he waits for her to come to fulfill her promise, but instead she leaves letters with clues and sends Masamune into a wild goose chase involving brooms and chickens, only for him to end up in his starting point. He then looks out the window and sees Adagaki with a big sign rejecting his advances, making him look like a complete fool. Suddenly, Yoshino shows up and tells him that he's a complete noob, and that with her, he will get his revenge. A few days later, the class rep Futaba blows up the classroom with the news that if one of the students has a failing grade, then the whole class has to take extra sessions. The femboy, Kojiro, tells them that his grades are extremely low, and that he has a room temperature. Iki Masamune takes the dumb femboy to the study hall, bends him over and starts studying with him. Out of pure coincidence, Adagaki is also teaching Yoshino, who is also a complete dumbass. Adagaki then starts talking trash at Masamune, calling him an overconfident idiot who likes to bend over and get manhandled by femboys. He remembers that Yoshino is actually on his side, and after hearing the disrespect from her, Masamune stands up and challenges her to a competition on which pairing can get the higher score on the test, him and Kojiro or Adagaki and Yoshino. If Masamune wins, she will have to go on a date with him. But if Adagaki wins, he'll have to be her daddy and pay for all her lunches. They both agree, and the battle is on. Back in her mansion, Yoshino tells Adagaki that Masamune is actually the second coming of Albert Einstein, and that he got a perfect score in his transfer exam. Adagaki is surprised to hear, and starts to feel intimidated. Back at home, Masamune is beating his meat, but then he receives a phone call from Yoshino out of nowhere. Masamune thinks that Yoshino will help him with the bet, but Yoshino calls him an imbecile and that she can't do it. Then, Masamune meets Adagaki at school and starts testing each other's knowledge and abilities, in which Masamune is able to answer every question. He realizes that he will have to count on his own ability to win the bet. Starting the studying montage, Masamune keeps teaching Kojiro day in and day out, while he himself studies extremely hard. His sister and midget mother even think that Masamune is crazy for studying instead of hitting the gym. The day of the exam arrives and goes by quickly. Masamune goes to buy some drink for him and Kojiro, and at the vending machine he meets Yoshino, who apologizes and gives him encouragement and treats him to some black coffee. Masamune is confused with Yoshino's behavior, but quickly finds out that his stomach starts to hurt and realizes Yoshino sabotaged the coffee by putting laxatives in it. The exam finishes and Masamune jaywalks out of the class and goes to look for Adagaki in her classroom. It turns out that Adagaki didn't come to school because of fever, and his mother's cooking is what caused him to get a stomachache. A few days went by, and it turns out that Masamune has to take extra lessons. But to his surprise, Adagaki is also there, and he sits right beside her. He finally manages to get his wish and secure a date with the cruel princess, Adagaki. She shows up cosplaying Sailor Moon to the date and gets everyone's attention. Some ugly nerd approaches her and asks for a picture with his camera and smelly armpits. Masamune shows up and saves her from him. It turns out it was Yoshino who set her up with the over-the-top costume. She poisons Adagaki's mind by making her think a weird costume is needed for first dates. During the date, they go to the movie theater, but it turns out that Adagaki is a young sugar mama and rented out the whole theater just for the two of them. They start watching the movie where Walter White gets chased by zombies and cornered, but then the zombies start making zombie babies with each other. The movie ends, and it knocks Adagaki out cold with how much of a masterpiece it is. Afterwards, her stomach growls, and they go to a restaurant to eat where Adagaki starts inhaling the food like there's no tomorrow. They're about to talk about something deep, until suddenly a little stupid kid shows up and starts violating her Sailor Moon cosplay. Masamune finally tells her the truth that the costume is not necessary, and this causes Adagaki to be self-aware and quickly change to new clothes. While in the changing room, she starts crying like a baby and Masamune quickly comes in to check, but only to see her half naked, and she punches him out cold. He wakes up on her lap as she is also sleeping, waiting for him to wake up. From then on, her heart slowly starts to melt for him. After the date, Masamune reports back to Yoshino, and she tells him that his revenge mission might humble Adagaki, which is a good thing. Back at home, Masamune studies romance mangas as a source of information to get Adagaki to fall for him. He learns how to do the slow-motion kiss scenes. At class, he executes his master plan, and that is to keep staring at Adagaki like a total idiot, with missing chromosomes, and deliver a cringy one-liner he learned from the romance manga. When it rains, he shows up out of nowhere and offers her an umbrella while saying a dumber one-liner, and runs into the distance like an imbecile that thinks he's cool and laughs like he's a genius. Later, Yoshino tells him that Adagaki thinks his actions are extremely disgusting, and that his obsession with using romance mangas as reference are dumber than a rock. She tells him a plan, and that plan is to withdraw and mix things up by having ice in his veins and be as cold as possible towards Adagaki. He feels worried about this new plan, but he proceeds to execute it. Adagaki tries to return his umbrella, but he channels his inner Sigma and ignores her. Even in class, he does it again and ignores her while she tries to return his umbrella. After school, he's confident that Adagaki will now jump on his willy, but it turns out it backfires, and she becomes cold towards him. Yoshino tells him to not fold like a bitch and commit to the plan. Days pass by, and each day, Adagaki gets further and further from his willy. Masamune has a mental breakdown over not feeling sexy enough, but suddenly Adagaki ambushes him with death written in her eyes. He tries to run away, but she quickly throws his umbrella at his fat head and blocks him from getting away. He almost succeeds in escaping, but she quickly catches him and starts humping him from getting away. Suddenly, she starts crying, asking why he is ignoring her. Masamune watches in awe on how Yoshino's plan has worked out. He quickly regains his composure and starts rizzing her up, but as she starts to get serious and asking why he likes her, Masamune folds and runs away like a coward with shrunken balls. He runs away like a total degenerate and questions his own sanity, as he didn't expect this much progression in their relationship. The next day, he tries to give her a letter with his feelings inside it, but she throws it away and tells him that she despises him and runs away. Masamune doesn't know what he did wrong, but Yoshino then tells him to pick up his balls and be a man that doesn't run away when asked about their feelings. Yoshino tells him to step back and let her handle things, but Masamune refuses and creates his own plans. Meanwhile, Adagaki is skipping class and remembers the other day where she saw Masamune and Yoshino talking in the garden, and assumed that he had been talking to other girls beside her. Suddenly, Yoshino shows up and admits that she has been seeing Masamune behind her back. Before Adagaki starts going crazy, Yoshino calms her down and tells her that Masamune only has eyes for her, and that took her by surprise. Yoshino then asks Adagaki if she likes him too, and she reacts like every tsundere in existence and denies it, even though it's true. Yoshino disappears like Batman, and Adagaki goes to look for her, and on her search she starts thinking about her past and her relationship with Masamune. Suddenly, a car almost takes over Truck-kun's job and sends her to another world, but Masamune arrives just in time to save her. After saving her, he tells her that he can't live without her. She blushes after hearing his words, and just when they're about to kiss, a girl disturbs them. The girl is shocked to see Masamune's handsome Squidward face and starts praying, thanking God for blessing her eyes. She suddenly hugs Masamune out of nowhere and starts a love triangle. She pushes her melons to him to assert her dominance, but then pulls herself back after realizing what she did. She tells him that she knows who he is as she holds him with her soft hands, making him start activating his reproduction system. He tells her that she got the wrong person, but she insists that's not the case. Suddenly, her butler, Shindu, shows up and asks her to leave. Adagaki sees the whole thing with disgust and tells him to touch grass, make babies with trees, and leave her alone. To make up with her, he goes to the cafeteria and starts buying food and brings it to her. But suddenly, someone from the bushes starts to open fire and shoots rubber bullets at him, and it turns out to be Yoshino. After falling to peer pressure, he explains to her about his situation with the mysterious woman who suddenly wants his willy. Yoshino is upset for his actions, but then leaves him as a chance for him to talk to Adagaki. He imagines a scenario where he tries to raise her up, but she randomly wears a Darth Vader helmet to repel him. He goes to the door to open it, but stops and instead drops the food and leaves it for her to eat. The next day, he fails to get some sleep and starts daydreaming about the mysterious girl, as she is totally his type. The class starts and the teacher comes in with a new transfer student, and with the harem anime gods on his side. It's the mysterious girl from the other day. She introduces herself to the class as Neko as she lights up the class with her beauty. During the break, Masamune fails to get a moment with her, as she is already extremely popular among the class. He keeps trying to talk to her, but always fails as she is always occupied by her own Yuri harem. After gathering enough chakra and bravery, he approaches Neko at her table. Suddenly, the group of girls stops and looks at him weirdly, and it turns out that Neko moved to this school just for Masamune. She recalls her past where 3 years ago during Christmas, Neko was in public gathering donations in the cold when suddenly, Masamune put his warm coat around her body to warm her up and put money into her donation box. He then starts rizzing her up and calls her an angel. The crowd goes wild hearing her story, but Makibi is confused hearing the story, as he was not the guy in the story, and that he was still a fat slob back then. He takes Neko's hand and pulls her away to talk privately outside. She falls to the floor, not being able to catch up, and starts coughing out blood. He starts panicking and helps her out, but suddenly she drops a packet of ketchup from her hand. It turns out that she lied about the blood in the Christmas story, but she doesn't want to tell him the truth and tells him that her feelings don't change. Masamune blushes to her ears, but pulls himself out of it and tells her that he likes someone else. Neko starts tearing up and asks him who that person is, and he brings her to see Adagaki. Seeing her competition, Neko smiles and sees her as nothing but a small fry with flat melons. With the biggest balls between her legs, she confronts Adagaki and starts a war with her over Masamune. Masamune tries to stop them, but suddenly the plot gods bless us once again and send a wind that blows Neko's skirt up and shows that she's gone full commando by not wearing anything underneath. Both Masamune and Adagaki see it, and it pisses Adagaki off, causing her to leave out of annoyance. Masamune tries to grab her, but she punches her way out and accidentally punches a teacher's face in the process and gets punished. The teacher tells them to clean the school's swimming pool. Masamune starts monkeying around and squirts water all over her, and she plans to squirt all over him too as revenge. She carries a bucket that is too heavy and slips into the pool, getting her all wet. She struggles to swim, and Masamune quickly jumps into the water to save her. Instead of showing gratitude, Adagaki starts insulting him, telling him that his feelings are fake, but he has enough and barks back at her, telling her that he really does like her, which surprises her. She tells him to prove it by kissing her. Meanwhile, Yoshino is left behind, waiting for her master, Adagaki. Suddenly, Neko shows up and starts interrogating her, asking her where Masamune is, to which she replies that does not know. Back at the pool, Masamune is still taken aback by her request to kiss her, and thinks about her soft lips. He imagines a scenario where he finally gets his revenge, declining her kiss, in a romantic beach, and not in a random pool on a random Tuesday afternoon. Adagaki gets tired of waiting and calls off the kiss, but Masamune quickly pulls her to him within kissing distance. He imagines her as a piece of meat and goes for the kiss, but she pulls out and gives him an uppercut. They'd argue, but it's cut short by Futaba and her friends from the swimming club. Adagaki steps out of the pool to run away and tell him that he's nothing but a dog in a mating season, leaving him in the pool with blue balls. Afterwards, Masamune is haunted by his attempt in kissing her. Then, Neko comes and sits next to him. Masamune is in a terrible state after what just happened, and Neko reads his situation clearly and gives him a salty hot tea. She then starts blabbing about the benefits of salt to battle dehydration and some other medical BS. He enjoys his tea and then clenches his cheeks and asks her what she likes about him. He feels confident like a total buffoon, thinking that she will have a difficult time in answering the question. But she tells him that he loves his charming modesty and how she will never give him up. Masamune folds to her Rick roll and answers, and now sees her in a whole different light. She then leaves and tells him to be more confident. Neko decides to take a walk home, and Yoshino takes the chance to follow and spy on her. She follows Neko, but from behind her is Neko's bodyguard, Shido, who catches her in the act. Yoshino tries to play dumb, but Neko then saves her from her bodyguard. Yoshino tries to fool Neko with her pure girl act as well, but Neko tells her to stop acting as a dumb bitch. Yoshino asks her why she's obsessed with Masamune, but before she gets to answer, Masamune's 3-foot-tall mother comes in and invites them in by force using her cuteness. Masamune comes home to the sight of them cooking in the kitchen and pulls Yoshino to his room to explain everything. Yoshino explains to him what happened and sees what's inside his room, which is nothing else but weights and half-empty Vaseline bottles. Neko then tries to join the fun in his bedroom, but he manages to push her out. They then have dinner, and Masamune's sister, Chinatsu, starts snitching on him, telling them how he used to be a fat pig, but Masamune quickly stops it and starts the dinner. During the dinner, Chinatsu points out that Masamune and Neko would make beautiful babies together, and then she invites them to play with fireworks afterwards. The girls start wearing yukata and bless our eyes with their beauty as they play with fireworks. Neko charms Masamune with her beauty, and she smiles every chance she gets, making his heart skip a beat. Masamune thought to himself that if he didn't have his revenge plan against Adagaki, he might have developed feelings for her. Neko then goes home with her bodyguard, while Masamune accompanies Yoshino to a nearby taxi stand, and she warns him to not fold for her underwearless cheeks. Meanwhile, Masamune's mother points out that she's really happy to be able to meet Neko again, showing that they have met before. In her car ride, Neko manages to steal a picture from Masamune's room of a younger Adagaki and Masamune as a fat pig. Summer vacation finally begins, and Masamune has a plan, which is to invite Adagaki to a beach episode with him. Adagaki comes in and tells him, "Not on my watch," and tells him that she will spend her summer vacation in a fancy beach villa instead, and invites Kojiro to spite him and make him jealous. Suddenly, Kojiro comes in clutch and tells the hoe that wherever he goes, Masamune goes, as he is the only person allowed to bend him over. Neko comes in and tells her that she will be there too, and Futaba jumps in and wants to join as well. Masamune smugly smiles and tells Adagaki that all of them have to go together. Finally, they all join Adagaki in her beach villa. They go there by a huge boat, and Yoshino approaches him on the boat and tells him that she can't find a logical reason why Neko is obsessed with him. She then tells him that on this vacation, he has to finally make a move and lay the pipe on Adagaki, and if he fails to do so, she will stitch on him and his whole plan to Adagaki. Meanwhile, in the villa, a hot MILF is having a mental breakdown while she is waiting for the boat's arrival. The hot MILF, Yosaki, who carries balloons in all the right places, greets the students and welcomes them to the villa. Yosaki is surprised to see a boy among them and asks Adagaki who he is. With his balls tucked between his legs, he announces with full chest that he is her boyfriend. Adagaki throws his suitcase at his dumb head and starts arguing, but Yosaki is very happy to see that Adagaki manages to get a boyfriend. Yosaki starts violating her and telling her that she can't believe that Adagaki manages to find a man that enjoys her non-existent melons. With her cheeks flustered, Adagaki has no choice but to agree and go along with it, as she wants to always look good in front of other girls. She then pulls Masamune away to her room for some alone time. They'd argue, but come to a conclusion that they will pretend that they are dating while on the island, and Masamune agrees to be her rent-a boyfriend for the time being. On the beach, Masamune poses with his body like a total imbecile, as he feels confident that he will be able to win Adagaki over. Sadly, no one cares about his shit physique except for Kojiro, who is a dude. Neko then steps in and pushes her melons into Masamune and starts flirting with him. Out of nowhere, Adagaki separates them and tells Neko that she should step back from her rent-a boyfriend and go touch sand somewhere else. She then asserts her dominance and pulls him away to somewhere quiet. While Yosaki watches from afar, Adagaki uses their fake relationship as a weapon and tells Masamune to go and fetch her some food from the house. Masamune goes to the house and goes to Yosaki, who prepares her some food, and he then asks her for recommendations of fun activities. She recommends them to go and have a test of courage. After he leaves with the food, Yosaki starts talking to herself like a maniac and tells Masamune that she doesn't agree that he becomes Adagaki's baby daddy. Back when she was still working at the mansion, she first met Adagaki crying over a fat boy and starting her villain arc of hating men, and Yosaki watches with joy as she is also done wrong by other men. Now she can't believe that a narcissist like Masamune is able to win her heart. At night, they start their test of courage in a dark abandoned drug house. He plans on saving Adagaki after she gets scared and unable to move his feet as her knees tremble, and lifts her up and carries her like some delusional hero and lives happily ever after as her boyfriend. Inside the scary house, Yosaki has a plan to scare Masamune using a scream mask and make Adagaki have a nick towards Masamune and break off their relationship for good. Suddenly, Yoshino comes in clutch wearing a Jason Voorhees mask while carrying a chainsaw and scares Yosaki out of her position. She chases her around and even scares off Adagaki and the others as she runs through the whole house wearing a scary mask. She then gets herself scared after seeing Neko and knocks herself out, running at a pole. Afterwards, she wakes up on Masamune's back as he is carrying her, and he thought that she was helping them scare people and making the experience better. She blushes and falls to his immaculate knees, and he tells her the truth that their relationship is fake. She sees him in a different light and considers him as a good person and perfect to be Adagaki's baby daddy. The next day, they go back home, and Masamune is scared that Yoshino will snitch on him. But it turns out that she is impressed by his plan and chooses to spare him. A few days later, they go back to their normal lives and Masamune starts by working out in his room in his underwear. He checks himself out in the mirror and admires his abs and tiny sausage. Suddenly, Adagaki calls him, and he starts tweaking like a loser who has never touched a woman before. It turns out that one of his luggage is left behind on the island, and Adagaki wants to return it to him in person. Yoshino warns him to be careful and not make any silly mistakes that will ruin his plans. Later, he wants to do his homework and realizes that the picture is missing from his drawer, and he quickly realizes that Neko is behind its disappearance. The next day, he meets up with Adagaki, and she returns his belongings to him. She then warns him that being too close to her is dangerous. He notices her blushing face and remembers the same face 8 years ago. He feels worried that Neko would quickly notice that the young girl in the picture is Adagaki, and as he gets lost in his thoughts, he ignores what Adagaki is saying to him. She stands up in a fit of rage and leaves him alone. He realizes he needs to get his ship straight and lock it in. Suddenly, Neko calls him to invite him to a pool, but then he quickly asks her to meet up with him. He meets up with her at her home, as she is wearing beautiful clothes that show her best physical attributes. At first, he feels nervous about entering a girl's house, but quickly knocks himself out of it. He quickly makes an excuse to the bathroom and starts looking for the picture that she stole. He sneaks into her room and slips on a bottle of vitamins, confirming it's her room. He looks around the messy room and even finds her rated R stash of books. He sits down and starts reading one of her books, and Neko sneakily whispers in his ear from behind, telling him that the tea is ready. Neko accidentally confesses that she has previously sneaked into his room and bought the same manga that he likes. He then bravely asks her if she stole his picture, and she calmly admits that she did. She pulls the picture out between her juicy melons and calls the fat boy in the picture as cute. Seeing a girl calling his old pathetic self as cute, Masamune's heart skips a beat. She pulls him closer as if she's ready to be devoured and whispers sweet things in his ear. She then kisses him passionately for a while holding his hand. He feels her soft and luscious lips and gets lost in the sauce, but quickly pulls himself away from her. She then gently and slowly pushes him to her bed and rests her body on him with her melons pushing on his chest, and slowly aims for another kiss that will lead to loud and happy noises. Masamune closes his eyes as he slowly wants to give up his plans of revenge against Adagaki. But then, he remembers her face and bitched out of the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He tells her about his past and how he used to be bullied and taken advantage of since he was fat and wealthy. He then tells her that she doesn't really like him, and her emotions are not actually serious. He didn't lay his pipe to her and left her dry, craving for him. She lays down on her bed and starts crying after getting rejected. The next day, Masamune and the others meet up at a train station to go to a water park together. Masamune looks bleak and gets a stomachache every time he hears Neko's name. Futaba tells them that Neko has canceled her plans to join, and Masamune feels that it's his fault. In their time at the water park, Adagaki keeps noticing that Masamune looks down and defeated, while the others have fun. Yoshino asks him if something happened, but he tells her not to worry. Suddenly, Neko's car arrives at full speed, and Neko's bodyguard, Shido, quickly steps out of the car and interrogates Masamune. It turns out Neko has gone missing in the morning, and she is worried that she left without any of her medications. She is surprised to see that Masamune does not know that she is extremely sick, since they were so close. He starts to remember her taking medicines and even coughs blood from her mouth, and realizes that she was not faking it. He starts to realize her true nature, faking her illness, and not wanting for her friends to see her as weak. Shido demands an explanation of what he did to her the day before in the apartment. Everyone is in shock hearing this, especially Adagaki, who spent the day with him on the same day. He gathers his courage and tells Shido the truth, that he declined to go out with her as he chose Adagaki over Neko. Adagaki quickly kills the awkward tension and tells them to focus on looking for her. Adagaki asks Shido to bring them close to the apartment, and for some of them to stay with Masamune, as he seems to know where Neko is located. No one stayed with him, and everyone left him to go with Shido in her car, leaving Masamune alone. Masamune feels dejected to see that Adagaki doesn't care about his confession at all, but quickly locks in to find Neko. Shido and her group fail to locate where Neko is despite their best efforts, and Masamune goes to one more place he thinks she might be in, the school. Suddenly, Adagaki joins him there as they have the same idea of where she might be. She tells him that even though she doesn't like Neko, and she thinks that she is a weirdly created specimen of a human being, she does feel bad for her getting rejected. Masamune takes it as an insult considering how Adagaki has treated all the boys who like her, and how she treated them like shit, and how they must have felt towards her. He remembers his past being called a pig's foot by her, and then he asks her straight if she remembers anything about her insulting someone pig's foot. Before she gets to answer, a paper airplane hits his head, and he sees more paper airplanes flying from the roof. He remembers that Neko also likes the same romance manga that he did, and the paper airplane was from one of its chapters. He quickly runs to the roof and remembers how in the manga, the heroine gets rejected by her beloved senpai and goes to the roof. They recreate the scene from the manga, and Masamune finally finds her on the roof, throwing her love letters as paper airplanes. He approaches her weak and frail body and calms her down. She faints and he catches her, as she is extremely weak from her illness. He quickly tells Adagaki to contact Shido and get help. He finally sees what's written in the paper airplanes are her love letters for him. Later in the hospital, everyone is worrying about her, but Shido tells them that she is stable for now. Neko asks to talk with Adagaki privately, and Masamune is sitting alone, thinking if he had made a mistake with wanting his revenge. He slowly gets deeper and deeper in his own thoughts of self-regret. But then Adagaki calls him and tells him that he's next. He enters the room to see Neko laying weak on the bed, and she asks him to talk about the past in a classic flashback. She remembers her time at her old all-girls school, and how the girls there love and appreciate her. Even then, her illness causes them to not be able to be with her normally, and she gets special treatment that she doesn't like. In her home, her grandfather suggested for her to go overseas for a surgery, but he was hesitant. But Neko tells him that she wants to try with one request, and that is she wants to fall in love. Masamune asks her why he is the chosen one, and she replies that he was picked randomly like a lottery. She feels happy for him to be her first experience in love, and how passionate he is as a person. She tells him that after she gets healthy, she will go far away, and she thanks him for all the beautiful and lovely memories that he helps create. In the waiting room, Futaba tells the other that she also has feelings for Masamune, but Yoshino doesn't care at all for this random and unimportant character. Futaba then acknowledges that Masamune likes Adagaki, but is curious as to what she feels towards him. Masamune finally gets out of the room, and Adagaki is the first to try and talk to him, but he keeps walking and ignores her completely and leaves the hospital. Back in the hospital, Shido asks Neko if she really wants to let him go, and she says yes. She then looks at a picture and triggers another flashback, and in this flashback is the true reason why she fell in love with him in the first place. The two of them met each other at an event. On his way home, Masamune thinks deeply about his own actions and his plan for revenge, as he is the same as Neko, as someone who faked their love towards someone. Even with that in his head, his hatred still blinds him and wants to take revenge on Adagaki for hurting her in the past. At the mansion, Adagaki thinks about what Neko told her, that she shouldn't act tough and accept Masamune's love, as she is also in love with him. She blushes to the thought of it and tries to cope her way out of it. She thought about if she should really like him, like how Neko suggested to her. She then remembers her past love with a fat boy that she loves, and how she loves her fat piggy cheeks and her fat stomach rolls. Suddenly, someone disturbs her in the garden while she is getting into it. It turns out to be a fat piece of shit who looks similar to Masamune. The fat bastard brings a letter from his even fatter grandpa that states that he and his micro-Willy should marry Adagaki as a form of diplomacy between the two families. He then introduces himself as Gaso, and Yoshino quickly tries to call Masamune, but fails as he is in the mountain with no signal on his own, training like Rocky. He then poses to the sun, basked in all his sweat and glory like a total dumbass. The summer vacation is over, and on the first day, another guy tries to win Adagaki's heart, but she quickly makes him look like a fool. Her girl group starts cheering for her as she rejects another man, but a member of her group, Mary, points out that she has spent most of her time with Masamune, and even spent the whole summer with him. Suddenly, Gaso and his massive love handles show up and start flirting with Adagaki. The girls expect Adagaki to turn the fat turd down and humiliate him, but to their surprise, she accepts his ruse. The girls couldn't believe their eyes as their precious idol, Adagaki, is willing to go out with Gaso and sleep on his sweaty blubbers. Masamune arrives at the school happy with how sexy he is, and is surprised to see Neko is still there. She tells him that she has undergone a surgery where parts of her body have been removed. She then asks him what's his progress with Adagaki, to which he responds nothing. She almost takes his head off, but stops after hearing that he was deeply thinking about what she previously said to him, that his fake love would never reach Adagaki no matter how hard he tried. He sees Adagaki outside with Gaso, and laughs out loud thinking that Tubby has a chance against him. After school, he goes to Adagaki's class, and it surprises him to see that Gaso is very close with her. Masamune then asks him who he is, and he then introduces himself as Adageki's future husband and baby daddy. Masamune goes crazy and quickly pulls Yoshino to explain to him what happened. Yoshino tells him that what he just said was real, and that he will be a guest at their mansion for the time being. She worries about Adagaki since she's been acting weird, and that she might actually be in love. Not believing in what he just heard, Masamune channels his inner Sherlock Holmes and starts investigating the fat bastard. He finds out that Geiso, despite his height and weight, is athletic. He is also smart and is quite popular with both boys and girls. Masamune can't figure out why Adagaki is attracted to him, and not Masamune's sexy six-pack. Yoshino apologizes to Masamune and points out that Adagaki has met him in the past and that a girl's heart is unpredictable. Meanwhile, in a non-copyright McDonald's, Adageki's girl group is upset that Adagaki betrays them and their ways of hating men, when suddenly Geiso shows up and asks to join them. At first, they want nothing to do with him, but he manages to convince them. The next day, Futaba leads the class in discussion for the school's festival and decides to elect Kojiro to play Snow White, and Masamune as the handsome prince in a yaoi play drama performance. Masamune tries to get Adagaki for an alone time, but fails as Adagaki doesn't want to talk with him, and Geiso shows up to prevent them from talking privately. From afar, the girl group watches and they are on Geiso's side as he manages to win their trust back in the fast food place. Both Adagaki and Masamune class want to portray Snow White as their show. One of the girls from Adagaki's group, Sunoka, who is an annoying midget, is the vice president of the school council, and she puts her favoritism forward and chooses Adagaki's class to portray Snow White. Hearing class proposal is denied, Tanabe walks to Adagaki's class and tries to convince them to let their show go on as their proposal was submitted first. Adagaki comes and starts arguing with Tanabe, but then Geiso comes in as mediator and asks them to calm down. Instead, Masamune comes in and pours gasoline in the fire and declares war on them, and a both shows judged based on popularity vote, and the winner of the vote will have their show greenlit. He then pulls Geiso aside and challenges him to a bet, and that is for the winner to have the final dance with Adagaki. The days after, they start the rehearsal with Futaba acting as the director. Futaba directs the play like a tyrant and starts her trade on Kojiro, who stars as Snow White. Even though he's a dude, Kojiro can't handle the pressure of being on the receiving end and runs away crying. Kojiro then runs into Neko, and she gives him encouragement and treats him like a proper man. Kojiro's heart skips a beat to her calming presence. Meanwhile, Masamune is trying to call out Kojiro from hiding and put in a Snow White's dress, when suddenly Geiso shows up to confront him. Geiso starts talking to get in Masamune's head, calling him a malnourished stick who doesn't get bitches. And then he starts talking about how Adagaki likes his chunky sausage better than his skinny sausage. He manages to get to his head and walks away. Masamune is more determined than ever to beat them now. On their way home, Adagaki and Geiso stumble upon an ice cream stall, and as Adagaki is buying, Geiso thought about his evil and his real reason in marrying her, which is to get her family's wealth as his family has been poor. Years ago, he pretended to be Masamune, as they looked similar, and pretended to be the person that was close with Adagaki. The next day, the festival starts and Masamune caught a cold after standing on his rooftop, while being half naked like a complete degenerate. He is determined to get healthy before the show, and plans to rest before it's his class turn. But suddenly, Neko shows up and pulls him to look around the festival. She brought him to the nurse's office, and turns out she already knew he was sick from a single touch. She tucks him in under the blanket and tells him to rest so he can give his best later. But she tells him that if he loses, she will gladly be his dance partner. She leaves him to get him something warm, but someone is waiting outside to sabotage. Meanwhile, the girls of Adagaki's class are changing clothes, but Geiso accidentally steps in to see their beautiful bosoms, and they kick him out. Geiso was just trying to find a place to change, but suddenly a mysterious figure wearing a costume guides him somewhere to change. At the festival, Kojiro is walking alone, thinking if he has a chance with Neko. But then he sees her at a booth and approaches her. He tries to raise her and be more manly, but fails as his voice sounds like a rubber duck. They both go to Masamune, but find out that he has disappeared. It turns out one of Adagaki's groupie, Kikune, kidnaps him and puts him in a room where no one can save him. Tanabe and Neko fail to locate him anywhere, but Kojiro then tells them that he suspected that Adagaki's class is behind this. Kikune tells him that she plans to keep Masamune trapped until Geiso and Adagaki dance together and finally lay the pipe. Suddenly, Adagaki's class is also in panic as Geiso has also disappeared into thin air. It turns out that Yoshino is the one behind his disappearance, and she did it to give Masamune a fighting chance. She tries to call him, but fails and realizes that they have the same plan in kidnapping Masamune. Masamune tries to fake dying so Kikune will let him go, but then Kikune starts yapping her delusion as Adageki's bodyguards and triggers a useless flashback that even Masamune doesn't want to hear. She tells him that once upon a time, in her kendo club, she always loses to a guy that cheats his way to a win, and that guy tries to raise Adagaki and fails miserably. Kikune sees that as amazing as to how someone manages to beat that cheating bastard easily. From then on, she became Adagaki's bodyguard. Masamune pulls out a massive IQ move and tells Kikune that she is no different from that guy, as she is also using a cheating method to win by kidnapping him. Kikune then starts questioning her morale and existence, but finally decides to let him go. Suddenly, she receives a phone call from one of the groupies, Mary, and she wants to talk to Masamune. She asks him to end the bet in a draw and return Geisho to them, as she thinks that Masamune and his class is behind his disappearance. Masamune quickly guesses that it's Yoshino's doing and pulls his big willy out and assert dominance, telling the groupie idiot, Mary, to touch grass. Mary is fuming after getting absolutely annihilated, but Adagaki shows up and tells her that the show must go on, even without the prince being present. Mary tells Kikune to leave Masamune and look for Geisho, but then Kikune starts attacking Masamune as she thinks that Masamune is behind this. Masamune runs away by jumping through a window, but he jukes her and hangs by the window, allowing her to drop to a pool below them. Masamune regroups with Futaba and Kojiro and tells them that they have won since Geisho is missing and unable to act. They tell him that Adageki's class is still performing without their prince, which surprises Masamune. Masamune rushes to the auditorium to see Adagaki's performance as he worries for her. He arrives just in time to see Adagaki perform, and thinks that their performance and setup is extremely good. He feels as if their performance and preparation is way better than theirs, but then Mary confronts him. He asks her why they continue without a prince, and she tells him that Adagaki feels that she doesn't need any prince to proceed, and she doesn't want to let her class hard work go to waste. Mary starts crying emotionally and congratulates them for their win, but Masamune is touched by their emotions and quickly looks for Yoshino so she can release the fat bastard. But before he even tries to find her, he sees her on stage as an adorable elf. He realizes that he doesn't know where Geisho is located, and he only has one solution to help Adagaki to solve her problem. He goes to Mary and tells her his plan. Adagaki lays down in her coffin as Snow White has bitten the poison apple, and only a true love's kiss can wake her up. Adagaki thought to herself that the show should end like this, that Snow White never gets saved and never gets to find her true love. Suddenly, the prince arrives, and it turns out to be Masamune, who becomes Adagaki's prince. Masamune tries to act his ass off, and hopes the other actors to stop being dumb and read the situation at hand. The elves manage to catch on and respond to the prince perfectly. Suddenly, the prince falls down as Masamune is getting sicker by the second. Mary is about to explode, thinking that he is trying to embarrass them, but Kikune explains to her that he is actually very sick. The prince walks slowly and almost falls again, but thankfully an elf played by Yoshino catches him and tells him that she will bend him over later and to keep going to Snow White. Yoshino's encouragement is enough to push him forward towards the coffin for the final kiss. The prince kneels in front of the coffin as Adagaki awaits for him to fake kiss her. Suddenly, Masamune pulls out his biggest trump card and kisses Adagaki for real in front of everyone. Unable to control her emotions, she punches the prince and knocks him out. The elves rejoiced as Snow White came back to life and lived happily ever after. Geisho arrives to see that the show is over and that he is too late. After the festival ends, Adagaki's class becomes the winner as Futaba's show is cancelled as Masamune is unable to play his role due to sickness. They arrange an after-party at a karaoke with both sides attending. They then start another bet with the best singer as the winner. Futaba goes first as she chooses the same song as the opening and a shameless promotional plug from the song's artist. They then take turns singing songs, but Adagaki's groupie has a plan to get Masamune to sing and out himself as a horrible singer that will turn off Adagaki's interest. Masamune runs to the bathroom out of nervousness, and the groupie confronts him, telling him that he can't run away and has to sing. Adagaki shows up and saves him from the embarrassment and tells the groupie to choke on a microphone. She tells him that it's his turn to sing. She comes in, but Neko already chose a song beforehand, and that song is Adagaki's favorite song. She can't help but want to sing, and Neko invites her to sing together. They then sing together in unison like veteran idols, and the others watch in amazement to their fantastic performance. Masamune watches them in awe as both of his potential future baby mamas sing the song gleefully. After they finish, the two girls are still unable to see eye to eye. Finally, it's Masamune's turn to sing, and his singing is so beautiful that it causes everyone to start foaming from their mouths and see the gates of heaven. After the karaoke, Masamune and Adagaki spend some alone time on a park bench while the other goes home. Masamune tells her that he's not leaving her alone until Yoshino comes back with her food, and Adagaki starts talking to him, but stops midway and gets flustered. She then asks him what she should do to properly thank him for saving her, and Masamune thought about licking her toes, but instead asked for a kiss. She then tells him to close his eyes, and goes for a kiss, but suddenly pulls back and shoves a massive sweet potato in his throat, to which he doesn't gag. She then goes home, and Yoshino tells him that he is an idiot, and that he should have raised her up, and tell her that he will never give her up. After the festival, Masamune returns to his old cheesy nonsense of posing in the mirror like a complete narcissist. Chinatsu tells him to not do that while in Paris, or some dudes will see it as an invitation for some cheek clapping. The midget mama comes in and tells Masamune that she cooked some high-calorie food, but he rejects it. He opens his journal and starts laughing like a supervillain for his new dead or love plan to be activated in Paris. Meanwhile, Adagaki is preparing to leave and tells her slave, Yoshino, to carry her bags. Then, Masamune leaves and Midget Mama starts crying while Chinatsu is excited as she can now rummage around his hidden stash of Peppa Pig. Masamune and the students arrive in Paris, and Kojiro is already intensely training his French lingo to lure in the hairy ladies, while Futaba is ready to mess around to find out who's in Paris. While Neko smiles at Masamune to get his attention, Masamune is focused more on getting revenge on Adagaki, but Geisou pops in to ruin the party. Masamune looks around and sees couples kissing around him, making him realize he's in the City of Love, which is the perfect place for his plan. He starts posing like a degenerate, but Adagaki pops up and asks him for some free time so she can talk properly over the events of the cultural festival. Suddenly, Masamune runs into a French blonde girl wearing an eye patch, and she is excited to meet Japanese people. She holds Masamune on the head and claims that he belongs to her. Then, she introduces herself as Muriel, who learned how to speak Japanese by watching the anime Reborn as a Coffee Machine 3D. Muriel tells them that she wants to make manga masterpieces like Rent a Girlfriend. She shows her creation of a rom-com manga with characters named Shikuwa and Sumire that looks absolute doo-doo. She tells Masamune that she wants him to model for her, as he is what she imagines Shikuwa to look like. He rejects her offer so he can spend more time with Adagaki and continue with the school trip. Meanwhile, Kojiro is growing interested in Neko and approaches her like a little simp, while Futaba watches from the background. Then they see Masamune and Adagaki wounded after they previously were confronted by thugs. The thugs took them somewhere private, and it turns out they were sent by Muriel's brother, Frank, who doesn't accept Masamune, declining her little sister's offer. Later, after Yoshino finds out about the whole Muriel situation, Masamune thanks Yoshino for making Adagaki invite him to some alone time. But Yoshino tells him that she didn't do anything, and that means Adagaki invited him herself. Yoshino is happy that Adagaki is now proactive and promises Masamune to help him. They fist bump, and Yoshino really appreciates someone treating her so nicely. Meanwhile, Geisou finishes his shower and covers up his pity jugs from the world. He feels angry at Masamune for disturbing his plot progression Adagaki, preventing him from getting her money through marriage and some cheeks on the side. The next day, Masamune and Adagaki didn't get some sleep after spending the whole night watching Annie and her videos, and leave to meet Muriel about her manga. Masamune starts by criticizing her work for being too realistic, and that she should follow the Rent a Girlfriend route, where the main character takes 300 chapters to still be a wimp and refuse to confess to the girl. Muriel disagrees and shows how it's done by almost kissing Masamune if it weren't for Adagaki stopping them. They teach Muriel that even if the characters love each other, they should delay the confession for thousands of chapters to be a masterpiece. Muriel suspects that they're talking about themselves, and it makes them choke. Then, Adagaki takes the wheel and shows Muriel how rom-com characters should be. Even after all the cheesy advice, both Masamune and Adagaki don't know what to show Muriel, as they are both losers at heart. Meanwhile, the others are hanging out, and Kojiro is trying to get close to Neko, but she still loves Masamune. Futaba tries to help Kojiro, but sees that it's pointless, but Kojiro refuses to give up like a good little simp. Meanwhile, Yoshino guides Geisou away from Masamune by saying that Adagaki is waiting for him while pretending to get lost. Geisou sees through the nonsense and tells Yoshino to tell the truth, but Yoshino doubles down and says that she wants to have his fat babies. Geisou catches her bluff and shows a picture of her with Masamune fist-pumping. He calls Yoshino a betraying little witch and threatens to snitch her to Adagaki, and Yoshino is not rattled by his threats, But then Gesu brings up her parents, and it scares Yoshino to her core. She tells him that he's a fat pig, and he doesn't deserve Adagaki's love, but Yoshino stops mid-word, as she herself holds a secret nobody knows. Gesu shows his text where Yoshino's parents are angry at her for what happened and tell her to stay away, leaving Yoshino in tears. Meanwhile, Masamune and Adagaki are still stuck trying to show Muriel what a rom-com should be like. Masamune gets himself together, holds Adagaki's hand, and walks like a couple with her while Muriel follows behind them, while taking notes for her manga of what the almighty handholding is like. The two of them unexpectedly enjoy their little walk, but it gets ruined by Muriel that is bothering them. Masamune realizes that his hand is sweaty and wonders if Adagaki realized he's nervous, but he sees his other hand being dry and realizes that Adagaki was the one being nervous. Adagaki's stomach grumbles and she's dying of hunger. Masamune gets her some food and she wants to gobble the sandwich in one go, but Masamune tells her that Muriel is still watching. To continue humping Muriel's manga, Masamune suggests feeding each other and they both start tweaking before Adagaki awkwardly feeds him her sandwich. Just as Masamune approaches the sandwich, he eats it away, not being able to take the pressure. Suddenly, a dog pops up, wanting to eat Adagaki's sandwich, and she tells the dog no before the owners apologize and Adagaki gracefully says goodbye to them. Masamune tells Adagaki that he knows how much she loves big dogs, but she feels that she never told him that as her last dogs died before she met this hot version of Masamune. She tells Masamune to listen up, as she wants to confess why she became Nico Cattle in the first place. Years ago, she saw her parents fight, and she ran away to her dogs being her only friends. The dogs ran to a group of kids, bullying a fat, Jabba the Hutt look-alike little boy, and Adagaki saved the fat kid. He introduced himself as Masamune, who was a total loser and couldn't stop crying, giving Adagaki the ick. That was the first time they met. Days later, Adagaki was stuck in between her parents' quarrel, fighting over her affection. Then, Masamune brings her some chocolate, but she declines it as she sees it the same as her parents, trying to win her over with gifts. Masamune starts crying as he feels bad about her situation, and she folds to his kindness. She tells Masamune that his training arc starts now, and calls out for her dog to start chasing him to burn calories. She feels genuine joy being with this little fat kid, and enjoys training Masamune. One day, Masamune takes matters into his own hands and handles the bullies by tricking them into falling down a hole and spraying them with a fire extinguisher. Afterward, he walks with Adagaki, and she tells him that she wants him to be happy while she's stuck in sadness as her parents are getting a divorce. She starts crying and Masamune hugs her, telling her that he will always be by her side, but after that, he never showed himself again. Adagaki sees herself getting used by Masamune just to help him with the bullies, but her love for him back then and seeing his cute fat belly made her an overeater. She knows that Masamune didn't regret leaving after Gesu told her so, as she thinks that Gesu is Masamune from her past. Adagaki tells the real Masamune that she can't accept his feelings out of fear of sadness. It shocks the real Masamune, as it's different from what he remembered. Years ago, Masamune wanted to get Adagaki some flowers, but the bullies pulled up on him. He ran away to Adagaki's house, calling her name, but the bullies caught him and talked trash about Adagaki. But Masamune defended her. Adagaki showed up in the window, shot Masamune's feelings down, called him pig's foot, and broke his heart to start his training arc at the gym, and his plans to break her heart as revenge. It triggers Masamune, and he tells Adagaki that she deserved every pain she endured. The two of them fight, and Adagaki leaves. Later, Gesu meets the sad Adagaki, but she runs away. Meanwhile, Muriel tells her brother to stop intimidating Masamune and Adagaki, and tells him that she wants to make a new manga inspired by their relationship with a happy ending. Meanwhile, Yoshino gets detention from her parents when Adagaki pulls up in tears and hugs her. Yoshino realizes she messed up 8 years ago. Back from the trip, Yoshino gets in trouble with her family for what she did. At school, the lunch hour is busy as usual and Yoshino manages to get food for Adagaki. But Adagaki asks Yoshino to get more food even after she eats more than a family of 4. Unlike Adagaki, who is eating calories, Masamune is out getting chiseled, burning calories. Yoshino pops up and tells Masamune that Adagaki has become more gluttonous. Masamune vents to Yoshino about how Adagaki twisted the truth, making herself the victim even after calling him pig's foot. Yoshino tells him that Adagaki has issues, and he should try to fix things with her. Yoshino tells him that she won't be able to help much this time, and that surprises Masamune. Meanwhile, Mr. Fatty McFatty Gesu is on a phone call when Yoshino walks past. He starts talking trash that he will soon be her master. Later, Masamune dreams about making things right with Adagaki, promising to give her 20 babies, and the crowd goes wild. He wakes up after falling and Neko is worried about him before asking him to meet her after school. Afterward, he meets her at the hospital after a checkup, and she asks him to vent to her about what happened. After an entire therapy session, she asks Masamune if he still wants his revenge and makes Adagaki fall in love with him, and Masamune says yes. Neko tells him that it's not love and hugs him. Because what Masamune wants is revenge, Neko feels that she still has a chance for him to love her. Suddenly, the men in black pulls up, and Masamune takes Neko to run away. At school, Gesu meets Adagaki and invites her to eat at a restaurant, but Yoshino tells Adagaki she can't join them. Yoshino leaves the two alone with Gesu being on cloud 9, seeing his chance to clap cheeks, but Adagaki's simp squad pulls up to stop him. Back with the chase, Masamune and Neko hide, and Masamune explains that those goons belong to Muriel and her brother. The goons got them cornered, and Muriel's brother, Frank, shows up to scold Masamune. Frank scares them by pulling out an envelope, and inside it is Muriel's new manga idea, inspired by Masamune and Adagaki. Frank tells Masamune that he's letting him off the hook just because of how he influenced his sister. They look at the manga, and Muriel steals Masamune and Adagaki's past, word for word, bar for bar, but ends it with a happy ending where Masamune is dating Adagaki, which makes the real Masamune wonder why he didn't end up like the manga. Neko pulls out a letter from Muriel, and she tells him that his story is better than Twilight, and she wishes she could know the real ending of his and Adagaki's romance. Seeing this letter gives Masamune a different view of what happened in his past and a revelation of something different. Later, Chinatsu goes home and dropkicks her brother, accusing him of sniffing her panties and swinging them around like Kazuma, but Masamune declines her accusation. The midget mama walks down, and it turns out she was doing her kids' laundry. Seeing this, Masamune starts thinking of how flawed the human minds are, and he starts thinking about Yoshino. Meanwhile, the simp trio is eating with Adagaki and Gesu, looking at Adagaki's picture in Paris. The pictures are missing Adagaki during her free time, and they demand Gesu to explain where he was during Adagaki's free time. Gesu tells them that Adagaki was with Masamune, and it shocks the simp trio. A few days ago, Gesu's little sister, Sumar, collapsed out of illness, and Gesu felt the need to marry Adagaki for her money as soon as possible. The trio starts nagging about Adagaki being with Masamune, and Adagaki tells them to shut their mouths. Gesu advises her to stop hanging out with Masamune, but she leaves without an answer. The trio starts targeting Gesu, but he switches the narrative by showing the picture of the fist bump, making the trio think that Masamune cheated on Adagaki with Yoshino. Years ago, Adagaki's family assistant met Gesu and thought that he was Masamune. Gesu took that chance and made a plan to marry Adagaki for her money. Now, Gesu plays the White Knight and tells Adagaki that he will forever be with her, making her fold. Meanwhile, Masamune goes to Adagaki's mansion to meet Yoshino. He tells Yoshino about Adagaki playing the victim, not remembering about calling him the pig's foot, but Masamune channels his inner Sherlock Holmes and thinks that it wasn't Adagaki who insulted him, but it was another girl her age that lived there. And that little girl is Yoshino all this time. He accuses her but has no proof, so he asks Yoshino directly, and Yoshino confirms his accusation. Meanwhile, Gesu is walking with Adagaki after getting permission from the simp trio. He tricked the trio by stating that he planned to separate Adagaki and Masamune. The trio suggests using the picture, but he plans to use the picture as the last resort to avoid hurting Adagaki completely. He wants to get both Yoshino and Masamune from Adagaki, and he needs the trio's help to make that happen. On their walk, Gesu and Adagaki make a detour to ride the Ferris wheel. Back with Yoshino, she explains the reason why she did it. It is because she hated Masamune so much. Back when she was little, she had a horrible chickenpox that prevented her from playing with Adagaki. She starts getting bored and wonders if Adagaki misses her. She hears her voice and sees Adagaki playing with Masamune, and it shocks Yoshino to see Adagaki so happy. She sees Masamune smile and realizes how much he likes Adagaki. Days later, Adagaki got sick and Yoshino was assigned to keep an eye on her. Adagaki hates her own room as it has her parents' gifts for her. Suddenly, they hear the parents fight, and it hurts Adagaki even more to imagine her parents getting divorced. Even with all her pain, Adagaki still feels hope as she has Masamune in her corner. And that makes Yoshino angry that even after all the years she was Adagaki's best friend and servant, Adagaki doesn't consider Yoshino someone special to her. Suddenly, Masamune's scream is heard and Yoshino sees him with his bullies. She picks up a wig and pretends she's Adagaki. Yoshino goes to the window and breaks Masamune's heart, calling him pig's foot. This earth-shattering plot twist completely breaks Masamune, but Yoshino tells him that what she did also broke Adagaki, making her hate men and depressed. Yoshino tried to find Masamune for years, and it wasn't until high school that she saw him and directly knew it was the Masamune she was looking for. It shocks Masamune that Yoshino knows instantly it's him and Adagaki, to which Yoshino explains that the image of the fat little version of Masamune is stuck in Adagaki's head. Yoshino reveals the reason why she kept helping him with his revenge was to make it up to Adagaki, as Yoshino knows that Masamune still loves Adagaki every time the real Adagaki comes out oozing with kindness. Masamune starts having a crisis and Yoshino tells him to save Adagaki from the fake-ass fat midget Masamune. Kasu. The real Masamune runs towards them and Yoshino wishes him luck. Masamune starts tweaking, cussing out everyone and their mama. Meanwhile, Gasu and Adagaki reach the Ferris wheel and Gasu feels that he's so close to marrying Adagaki and getting her money for his sick sister. Gasu knows that the real Masamune is still in Adagaki's heart and he aims to delete him completely. The trio confronts Masamune on his run and shows him the picture, accusing him as a cheater. Masamune puts his big boy pants on and the trio in their place, demanding them to tell him where Adagaki is or he will show them why they call him Big Daddy. Then he hits the location and runs to the Ferris wheel. Meanwhile, Gasu sees two siblings where the stupid little sister drops her ice cream, and the poor older brother gives her his ice cream which reminds him of him and his sister. He buys ice cream for Adagaki and they talk about his sick sister. Adagaki offers her help and before he says anything, Masamune shows up and punches Gasu, telling him to stop using his name. Masamune channels his inner Chadness and tells Adagaki to go out with him, the real Masamune. Gasu pushes Masamune, telling him that he won't let some hot popular guy like him take Adagaki from her. Masamune reveals that he was never popular and goes to Adagaki to show her that he's the real one. It shocks Adagaki completely but Gasu doesn't accept what he's seeing so he demands Adagaki to choose. Adagaki looks down and notices that Gasu has fat piggy melons, shocking everyone that he is actually a girl. Gasu quickly covers it up and runs away, leaving the two alone. After the awkwardness passes, they start roasting each other, calling each other fatty, but then Adagaki asks about Masamune's request to go out with him and she accepts. Meanwhile, Gasu visits her sister in the hospital, and instead of feeling down, she feels relieved that she can now stop pretending to be someone she's not. The next day, Masamune goes ham on the treadmill, thinking about his upcoming date with Adagaki. Chinatsu screams his name, causing him to fall, but Masamune doesn't get up and goes to an isekai. For the next month, girls start confessing to Masamune, and after he rejects them, they surprisingly understand as there are rumors between him and Adagaki. Later, Masamune feels that his life is getting more hectic and Neko tells him because he's now dating Adagaki, he becomes every man's enemy. Neko herself feels sad, and Masamune remembers when she asked to be his lover. But now Neko can only cry herself at night. Masamune tries to explain, but Neko is willing to wait for him while enjoying the whole drama. Then reality kicks in and Masamune realizes that there is no going back. He receives a text from Adagaki, asking him to buy her bread. Then he goes to the cafeteria, ready for the war of the lunch hour, but gets a surprise in the form of Gasu serving the bread. Then, Gasu explains that the school let her work as she is broke. She spoils out her whole plan, which fell apart, ending with her getting punched. She sold off her mansion, but instead of feeling sad, she feels happy that the burden of her family is off her shoulders and she can be a normal girl again. Gasu offers the alternative and asks to be Masamune's baby mama, as Masamune himself is rich and hot like every female novel reader's delusion. Masamune starts tweaking and Gasu tells him she's joking. Meanwhile, Adagaki is pointlessly trying to lift up a stove with her spaghetti arms when Masamune comes in with the food. Adagaki tells him what she was trying to do and Masamune easily lifts up the stove, rizzing Adagaki. She takes the food Masamune brought without saying thank you, and he scolds Adagaki for it. She pulls out high-calorie foods and gives them to him as a thanks, but he refuses. She tells him that fat belly is love, and he should go back to being a little piggy. Masamune realizes that he stopped being fat for his revenge, but the situation now changes as he doesn't hate her anymore. She explains that she just wants to reward him and Masamune goes straight for the kiss, but Adagaki stops him. Yoshino pops up and Masamune leaves awkwardly. Then, Masamune sits in silence, realizing he doesn't hate anyone anymore after knowing the truth. Suddenly, he realizes he has a skin rash on his arm. Later, he meets Yoshino at their usual spot, and after not talking for a long time, Masamune asks her how she's been. Yoshino reveals that everything is normal as Adagaki never found out that she was the reason Masamune left in the first place. With Masamune now dating Adagaki, Yoshino thinks everything is going smoothly. Suddenly, Masamune drops down to his knees and begs Yoshino to help him as he doesn't know how to date Adagaki, so she gives him a tip that Adagaki's birthday is on Christmas Eve. Masamune is excited to hear that and goes for the fist bump, but Yoshino rejects it and tells him that she will no longer contact him from now on. Later, after knowing Adagaki's birthday, Masamune asks her if he can celebrate it with her, and Adagaki is happy to hear his proposal. Later, with Yoshino no longer helping him, Masamune needs to find ideas for Adagaki's birthday. He asks Chinatsu and the midget mama for advice and regrets it after they suggest that he should go to Adagaki's room and clap her cheeks while Santa Claus is watching. Then he goes to Plan B and finds ideas from a romance manga, but finds nothing in them. The next day, he asks Kojiro for the perfect Christmas date spot, and Kojiro suggests multiple restaurants, serving Michelin-level food. Weeks go by and the day of the date arrives. Adagaki arrives looking like a 10 out of 10, folding Masamune. They start the date by watching a movie, and it reminds him of when he had to sit far away from her. But this time, Adagaki sits next to him. They watch a Walmart Hachiko, and the two of them enjoy the film and each other's company. Afterward, Adagaki cries after watching the film where the dog got yeeted to a new isekai, and Masamune cheers her up by taking her to a pancake cafe. They arrive and the pancake cave got burned down, making Masamune change plans. Then, every restaurant rejects them for having no reservation, but Masamune refuses to give up. He thinks deeply and invites her to eat at his place. He imagines his family not believing he actually bagged a baddie, but as he enters the house, no one is there. He sees a note that says Chinatsu and Midget Mama going to a hot spring, leaving Masamune alone with Adagaki. She goes to see the note herself, and they both realize there's a chance for some cheeks clapping tonight. Adagaki has suspicion that Masamune planned this on purpose, but Masamune denies her accusations and gets her tea instead. He looks for the tea but only finds fat people's snacks that his mother kept offering him. Adagaki helps him find the tea, surprising Masamune with how nice she actually is. Suddenly, Adagaki has the idea of making their own pancakes to eat, and they look like a married couple, cooking for their home, fooling around, and having fun. Later, they have pancakes and hot cocoa ready. And while Adagaki enjoys her food, Masamune worries about the calories, but the sight of her enjoying her food pleases Masamune. He offers to feed her, taking Adagaki off guard while Masamune teases her for being a wimp. She eats it off his hand and he feels something is wrong with his arm. She tells him his pancakes taste bland and puts all the syrups on his pancake, throwing his diet out of the window, wanting him to get fat again. Masamune pulls her to his room and shows her his workout equipment and the picture of them as kids. He tells her that the little fatty from her childhood has changed and he doesn't want to go back. Masamune asks her if the current him is worthless to her, but she slips before answering, putting them on top of each other. Suddenly, Masamune feels sick to his stomach and runs to the bathroom. He texts her that his birthday gift for her is in his coat and that she should leave for today. Adagaki pulls the gift out, but she also sees his revenge journal and leaves. Masamune realizes that he has a disease inside him, causing him to have a skin rash, and it started when he touched Adagaki. Meanwhile, Yoshino greets Adagaki home wearing a Santa outfit, and she notices Adagaki being down. Adagaki opens her gift, and it's a keychain that looks like her old dog's, making her remember her precious memories. She's conflicted if Masamune likes him or not after seeing his revenge journal, not knowing what it means. A few months pass, and Neko is celebrating New Year's with her family. One of her family members is out of booze and she goes to get more. During her trip to get the booze, a stupid little kid runs into her, and his mom scolds the little. Neko recognizes the mom, and the mom starts glazing Neko for growing up to be a pretty lady. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Masamune is screwed because the doctors don't know what's causing his illness. The doctor suggests that stress is causing it and Masamune should do a regular checkup. Masamune suspects that it has something to do with Adagaki being his kryptonite. At a cafe, Kojiro is hanging out with Futaba, talking about their holidays. Futaba has the idea to invite everyone to visit the shrine, and that is when Kojiro looks outside and sees Masamune. They text him and invite him in. Meanwhile, Adagaki is still thinking of the journal she saw, and Yoshino asks her if she doesn't want to go out and touch grass, but Adagaki refuses. At the cafe, they tell Masamune about their idea to visit the shrine together, and ask Masamune to invite Adagaki as well. But Masamune is worried about his illness and creates some cheesy lie to not invite her. Meanwhile, Neko remembers her first meeting with Masamune as kids where Midget Mama introduced Neko to Masamune. Neko kept hiding behind her mother, and Masamune tried to cheer her up by offering her chicken from his pocket. It became a precious memory for Neko. Suddenly, a text comes in, and it's Futaba inviting her to visit the shrine. Then, they all gather in front of a shrine and Kojiro goes straight to simp mode for Neko. Neko notices Adagaki and Yoshino missing and knows that something is wrong. Then, they pray and pick out blessings for the next year. They walk around the fair and Neko keeps noticing that Masamune is acting weird. Futaba sees the game Hanatsuki and asks the others to play. It turns out to be Masamune and Neko versus Kojiro and Futaba. Neko shows off her plot armor and her team wins. After their visit, they split up and Masamune notices that his skin is now healthy. At school, Masamune walks past Yoshino after she agrees to cut contact with him, and they act like they don't know each other. Later, Neko finishes her examination at the hospital, and Masamune is there too. She invites him to her apartment so they can talk more. At the apartment, Shido gives Masamune a death stare, telling him to keep his zipper closed. Then, Masamune talks about his stress-based illness and whether he has to tell Adagaki the whole truth, even if it hurts Yoshino. Neko turns serious after everything she saw for the past few days and concludes that Masamune is experiencing burnout syndrome. She explains that losing his ambition for revenge is the same as losing his ambition to live, and dating Adagaki, even though he doesn't love her, is taking a toll on his mind. She reveals that she met Masamune before he even met Adagaki, but Masamune's shrimp brain doesn't remember a thing. Neko tells him it's fine as she once forgot it herself, but the past doesn't matter as the current her loves him now. She asks if he feels the same and goes for their kiss, but Shido pops in and ruins the party. Masamune notices that his skin rashes back, and it frustrates him, not knowing what causes it. Later, he screams out his frustration and causes a girl to fall over. It turns out to be Yoshino getting some snacks. Meanwhile, Adagaki is starving at home and calls out for her slave, Yoshino, to cook for her, but Yoshino is not there. Adagaki asks Yoshino's sister and finds out that Yoshino is out on an errand. Back with Masamune, Yoshino tries to run away from him and sprains her ankle, causing her to fall. Masamune picks her up, and she eats him away with her brass knuckles. She forces herself to walk, looking like an old hag. She ends up folding and asks Masamune for a piggyback ride. At a cafe, the simp trio is waiting for Adagaki and blames Masamune for going too hard on Adagaki every night, making her late. Sunoka refuses to believe that they are dating while Mary tells Sunoka to face the reality that Adagaki has climbed the stairs of pleasure. Kikyu now has enough and plans to ask Adagaki how Masamune bagged her. Mary plays the devil's advocate and tells the other two that their worry for Adagaki might be a nuisance for her, and it scared the simp trio. Adagaki shows up and the trio doesn't know what to say. Meanwhile, Masamune is folding as he has Yoshino's cheeks on his hands and her two fat jugs on his back while giving her a piggyback ride. Yoshino asks Masamune to hurry and bring her to the park as people can see her panties as she is wearing a skirt. At the cafe, the trio is struggling to ask Adagaki the question about her new dating life, and as they try to do so, it makes things worse and Adagaki can sense that something is off. Sunoka gathers her courage and shoots the question if Adagaki is really dating Masamune. Adagaki starts folding and says yes, surprisingly causing the simp trio to fold, seeing her adorable reaction. At the park, Masamune puts Yoshino down and she asks him why Adagaki came home looking down after her birthday date. Masamune tries to spout bullshit and Yoshino rejects his answer. She starts abusing him, demanding him to seal the deal while pinching his face. Masamune realizes something and starts rubbing Yoshino's head and hand. He suddenly hugs her, shocking Yoshino, and he sees that his illness doesn't react. Masamune realizes that he was happiest when he was with Yoshino, making revenge plans. Yoshino is pissed and headbutts him out cold. Then, Adagaki walks alone and she meets Keisu after a long time. Masamune wakes up alone and sees a writing on his face that he should keep his mouth shut. He realizes that he's an idiot and is being unfair to the girls. At a cafe, Keisu apologizes for lying to Adagaki, but Adagaki understands where Keisu was coming from, needing money for her sister. Adagaki forgives Keisu, and it amazes Keisu of how amazing Adagaki is, but Adagaki rejects his compliment. She feels that, unlike Keisu who was genuine, Adagaki wasn't, as she feels she hurt someone without being able to do anything about it. Keisu tells her she knows that it's Masamune she was talking about, and Keisu assures her that the heart can't lie. Keisu knows that after she tried to defend her family's status by lying, and after she got exposed, her heart revealed that the family's status meant nothing, as what matters to her is her sister's health. That revelation gave her a new start in life. Gasu asks Adagaki if she can accept her true feelings. Then she continues to think about it and goes home. At home, Adagaki meets Yoshino and sees that she sprained her ankle. She tells Yoshino to sit down and sees her bruised ankle. Adagaki puts some compress on Yoshino's ankles, and it makes Yoshino cry as she feels she's betraying Adagaki for having feelings for Masamune. At school, Masamune arrives and Yoshino gleefully holds his arm as she is now her lover. But Masamune wakes up as it turns out to be a dream. The next morning, Masamune remembers the dream he had with Yoshino. In class, Kojiro and some girls are talking about types of chocolate. Masamune and Neko walk in and Futaba drags them to talk about Valentine's Day. Futaba teases Masamune about getting some chocolate from Adagaki, upsetting Neko. Meanwhile, Adagaki is taking it seriously and picking a chocolate, and Yoshino advises that she should make homemade chocolate to make Masamune even happier. Adagaki fears that her chocolate will be awful, but Yoshino tells her that she will teach her. Days go by and everyone is thinking about chocolates, while Masamune doesn't care due to the calories. Then, Adagaki successfully makes her chocolate and asks Yoshino if she has her own Valentine, but Yoshino rejects the idea. Valentine arrives, and Futaba shares chocolate with the whole class, making all the lonely dudes happy. Meanwhile, Kojiro goes to Neko and gives her his love chocolate, and she accepts it as a friend. Then, Adagaki pops up, and Neko teases her about giving Masamune chocolate and some cheeks on the side. Neko feels happy about seeing Adagaki's relationship, but Adagaki responds coldly and walks away. Meanwhile, Masamune turns into Mr. Popular, with all the girls giving him chocolate, when he receives a text from Adagaki asking to meet up, so he rushes to the gym to meet her. Adagaki sees all the chocolate Masamune is getting and it pisses her off, making her not want to give him her homemade chocolate. Masamune realizes he's screwed up and uses his rees to win her back and her chocolate. Adagaki folds and gives the chocolate to him, but he realizes that she burned herself during the process, making it more precious. He eats them, kicking his diet and his desire for revenge goodbye forever. He enjoys the chocolate, and Adagaki folds seeing it happening. The next day, Masamune is late for his date, and he teases Adagaki for being excited to be there early. But he turns out to be right. Adagaki changes the subject to their date being a culinary trip, and hopes Masamune can keep up with her. They go into the first spot, eating Ghibli-looking food, and Adagaki orders more after the first bite. Masamune joins her and orders more for himself too. Meanwhile, Chinatsu and her 3-foot-tall mom gossip about Masamune going on dates and slowly changing himself to a fatty, not rejecting the cream puffs his mother made. They suspect it's because of Adagaki, and they can't wait to meet her. Meanwhile, the couple is at a burger joint, where Adagaki orders food enough to save world hunger, while Masamune is already full. He forces himself to eat for her sake, but ends up regretting it afterward, admitting defeat. Masamune starts squatting to burn some calories, but ends up puking out everything. Adagaki gives him some water, and she feels happy that he's actually trying despite being a malnourished stick. After the date, she tells him how happy she is, and Masamune asks her to go on more food dates with him. The next day, Yoshino is eating alone when Neko sits next to her, asking if Yoshino is lonely since Adagaki is now spending her time with Masamune. Yoshino admits she is lonely, but is happy for her master's new romantic relationship. Meanwhile, Masamune eats lunch with Adagaki while recommending their next dating places. He's not worried about getting fat as he still exercises, and Adagaki is conflicted over that. Then, they run to class, but Masamune slips and Adagaki tries to help him out, but he gets up by himself as he fears getting the skin rash if he touches her. A few days later, it starts snowing and Neko tells Masamune he's getting fatter. She asks him about his skin rash, and he tells her he's fine. After school, Adagaki meets up with Neko privately, and they waste no time to beef each other. Suddenly, Neko asks her to break up with Masamune as Masamune only loves Adagaki because of their past, but Adagaki already knows that. Adagaki explains that she already knew when she read his revenge journal, but she still wants to date him because she loves him. The sight of Adagaki crying shivers Neko's soul. Adagaki confesses that she was really happy to know that he's the real Masamune, but she still doesn't know if he loves the current her or the Adagaki that was in the past. Adagaki tells Neko that she is just like her, and that even if Masamune hates her, she refuses to let him go as her heart already belongs to him. She leaves Neko in tears, and Neko finds Kojiro outside, secretly listening to them. Later, Adagaki meets Yoshino outside, and Yoshino knows that something happened. She sees Adagaki's reaction, and Adagaki tells her that Neko told her that Masamune doesn't really love her, Yoshino tries to start beef with Neko, but Adagaki stops her, as she already knows that. Adagaki reveals she knows about the revenge journal, and Yoshino tells her she misunderstood and that it's Yoshino's fault. Then, Yoshino confesses what she did, pretending to be Adagaki, calling Masamune Pig's Foot, and helping Masamune get closer to Adagaki out of guilt. But Adagaki forgives her. Yoshino tells her that Masamune really loves her, and Adagaki asks Yoshino to do something for her. The next day, after gaslighting her brother for being a lazy loser, Chinatsu and Masamune create a snowman, and Chinatsu tells him that she wants to meet his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Kojiro remembers his conversation with Neko, where she told him that she antagonized Adagaki for the sake of both Adagaki and Masamune to not lie to their own feelings. That Neko leads Yoshino, but Yoshino flicks her middle finger internally and walks away. In the storage room, after they finish eating, Masamune wants to ask Adagaki to meet her family, but he backtracks like a coward. After school, Kojiro bravely asks Neko to walk home together, and she expects him to hate her after her previous talk with Adagaki. He uses his ruse and says that he's just worried about her. Neko starts thinking of herself as a bad person, wanting Adagaki to break up with Masamune, so Kojiro glazes like a good little simp and calls her a kind person to calm her down. Later, Yoshino is worried about Adagaki and Masamune, but Adagaki tells her that everything is great, and she thanks Yoshino for her confession. Adagaki calls Masamune and invites him on a date, shocking him in the process. She tells him she wants to plan for the date and take him somewhere special. Then, Chinatsu suggests that her brother should get Adagaki a ring for White Day, but he rejects the idea. His mom suggests returning the Valentine's chocolate, so he starts baking, and he plans to make the all-difficult macarons. His family suggests something easier, and he refuses. Later, he burns the macarons time and time again, looking like dog poo. In the end, he plans to buy them, and Kojiro gives him the best place to buy them. After school, the boys go out to buy the macarons, looking like a Brokeback Mountain date between two pretty men. They look at their options and see a limited edition shop selling animal chocolates. Masamune sees a bunny chocolate and buys it as it looks like Adagaki. Then, Kojiro wishes him luck, but Masamune notices Kojiro also bought something for Neko. Days later, Adagaki leaves for her date and meets Masamune in a random drugstore. Masamune thinks that they are there to get some Plan Bs, but Adagaki has other plans. She approaches a random clerk and asks him if he knows her. She reveals that the clerk is Masamune's old bully, and it shocks the clerk to see that Masamune, the little fatty McFatty, is now a chatty McDaddy. He apologizes to Masamune for what he did, and it shocks him. Then, Adagaki asks Masamune how he feels, and he is surprisingly calm, as if it doesn't matter. She offers to meet the other bullies, but he refuses as he is now stronger than he used to be. Adagaki feels proud of him, and Masamune tears up, thanking Adagaki. He pulls out his White Day gift and gives it to her. He lends out his hand, wanting to touch her despite his illness, but Adagaki stops him and rejects his gift. As Masamune has moved on from his past, Adagaki says her goodbyes. Then, Masamune starts being absent from school. His friends are worried sick about him, and they don't know what happened to him. They try to contact him, but to no response. They see Adagaki, and Futaba asks her if she knows anything, but Adagaki coldly tells Futaba that she doesn't know shit, and it worries Yoshino. Adagaki drops the bomb of the century, revealing that they broke up, and it shocks everyone. Yoshino begs her to reconsider, but Adagaki tells her it's pointless. Yoshino feels powerless after not knowing what happened, and she plans to go to Masamune's house to find out exactly what cheesy rom-com nonsense happened, and the others want to join her. They arrive at Masamune's house carrying puddings, but no one is home. Suddenly, Chinatsu responds after hearing about puddings and ambushes Kojiro. After finishing the pudding, Neko notices that the house is messy, and Chinatsu explains that her mother is a mess. She takes them to Masamune's room, and inside is the midget mama crying, begging her son to come back. Chinatsu explains that Masamune left to go to his grandpa, despite his family's best attempts to stop him. Yoshino realizes that Adagaki has something to do with it. Then they decide that waiting for him is the best course of action, and Neko feels that worrying won't do anything. Suddenly, Yoshino loses it and starts tweaking, blaming Neko for getting in Adagaki's head. Yoshino gives Neko a reality check, telling her that Masamune will never love her. Neko slaps Yoshino, calling her a hypocrite for lying to her own feelings for Masamune to protect herself, while Neko is always truthful, but ends up with nothing. Adagaki shows up and tells Futaba to take Neko home. Adagaki asks Yoshino to talk with her, just the two of them. Meanwhile, Masamune is living the peaceful Sigma life with no women. His grandpa shows up scolding him for bringing Adagaki's gift to a sacred place, and Masamune throws the gift to the fire. Later, Adagaki puts aside her status and talks with Yoshino eye to eye. She thanks Yoshino for always being with her and reveals that she knows that Yoshino also loves Masamune. It leaves Yoshino speechless, trying to deny it, but Adagaki pushes her to be honest. Yoshino cries as she only wants Adagaki to be happy, but Adagaki tells her to stop worrying. Yoshino confesses that she fell in love with Masamune little by little after spending a lot of time with him, making her feel guilty. Adagaki tells Yoshino to not feel guilty and to honestly face her feelings instead. Adagaki encourages Yoshino to go, and she runs away to get to Masamune, leaving Adagaki in tears and heartbroken. Meanwhile, Futaba and Neko are singing their hearts out in karaoke, cheering themselves up. Neko thanks Futaba for her kindness, and Futaba takes the chance to play matchmaker and endorses Kojiro for Neko to date him. Neko still feels conflicted in her feelings, so Futaba whacks out the Optimus Prime speech to cheer her up and tells her that her love for Masamune will stay beautiful forever. Meanwhile, Yoshino is on a mission to get to Masamune and make herself the main heroine of this story. She gets on the train and remembers all the highlights between herself and Masamune, where she always lied to her own feelings and refused to admit that she loved him. The next day, Masamune starts his day early, and it reminds him of the days when he trained every morning to lose weight. Masamune talks with her younger self and tells him to give up, but the fat kid refuses in order to achieve his revenge. Masamune tells the little fat pig that he has no enemies, making Thorfinn proud, and that he should find peace by letting it go. The sun shines on him, symbolizing a new start for Masamune. Suddenly, Yoshino pops out with tears in her eyes, goes to hug Masamune, and kisses him, while all of us Yoshino stands cheer for her. A few months later, Yoshino goes on a date with Masamune, leaving Adagaki starving, but she refuses to be dependent on Yoshino. She looks at the pickle Yoshino brought months ago, and it reminds her of when Yoshino came home wearing Masamune's jacket after her trip to find him. Adagaki asked her how it went, but Yoshino didn't answer. Now Adagaki is eating that pickle and feels that she can live alone. Suddenly, she starts feeling down as Masamune and Yoshino are now a couple. At school, Futaba, Neko, and Kojiro find out they're in the same class. Gasu shows up wearing a skirt and informs them that she also will be in the same class. Meanwhile, Yoshino is trying to see which class she's in, and Kojiro tells her that they are all in the same class together. Neko and Yoshino squash their beef while Adagaki realizes that she is in the same class alone with Masamune. Adagaki sees it as a curse for breaking up with a hunk like him, and Masamune teases her for having only him as a friend. In class, Masamune talks with Adagaki casually, and it reminds Adagaki of the days they were a couple. Then, she plans to keep her distance and eat alone in the storage room. She's angry that she's alone, and Masamune pops out to give her more food. Adagaki feels conflicted, but Yoshino shows up and pulls Masamune away from Adagaki, who is pissed of their relationship. Later, Adagaki decides to move on and gets a haircut, surprising Yoshino. Then, Yoshino starts tweaking, and Adagaki confesses that she is struggling to move on. Yoshino screams at Adagaki for being an idiot and reveals that she was tricking her, and that Masamune is waiting for Adagaki at school. Yoshino kicks her away, and Adagaki goes to school. Yoshino feels what Adagaki felt when she saw Yoshino leave for Masamune. During her mission, Yoshino understood how Masamune felt on his training arc in the mountains, obsessing over Adagaki. She saw Masamune there, she wanted to be honest with her feelings, and now Yoshino wants the same for Adagaki. Then, Adagaki goes to the classroom and finds a letter, implying he's playing a game like she once did. Adagaki tries to look for him, but everywhere she sees, a memory of herself and Masamune is present, proof of her love for him. Then she sees Masamune and tells him to stay still, but Masamune is confused and goes to her location. They both run and switch places, and they keep doing it, refusing to get their ego beaten until finally, Masamune catches her and they both fall on each other. Adagaki cries and tells him to leave her alone in her sadness and be happy with Yoshino, making babies. It confuses Masamune, and he reveals that he's not dating Yoshino, shocking Adagaki. Months ago, after Yoshino kisses him, she refuses to let go and tells him she loves him. He thanks her for her feelings, but Masamune rejects Yoshino as his feelings are with someone else. Yoshino takes the rejection well, and she now roots for the former fat pig to get his girl. Masamune apologizes to Adagaki for hating her for so long, not knowing the truth, and causing her pain. He asks her to read the letter in her hand, and inside it is his confession, wanting to be his boyfriend. Then, Masamune asks her directly, and it reminds Adagaki of what should have been in the past, where Masamune brings her flowers and asks her to be his girlfriend. Adagaki starts folding, and she can't believe that Masamune actually loves her. He holds her hand, kisses her, and tells her that she is the only one for him from the day he was fat until the day he eventually dies. Adagaki asks him if they can kiss, and Masamune goes straight for the jackpot. Suddenly, he gets cold feet and prepares himself first before finally finding the courage to look her in the eye, touch her cheek, and kiss her. Months later, the school starts a campfire after finishing a classic anime school festival. Masamune asks graciously for the hand of his girlfriend, Adagaki, and invites her to dance their overdue dance in front of a campfire, ending this story of revenge with love and making us loners feel even lonelier. If you watched this anime recap until the end, comment "A fit man's cheeks clapping is better than a fat man's revenge." If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.